All right. Hi, ladies. How you doing?
Good. How are
Hi.
you doing?
Yeah,
Good.
not too bad. And for those who are just joining us this week, I'm Lauren, the Director of Development here at Passionflix.
I'm Allie. I'm the Director of Marketing and PR.
And I'm Tosca. I'm the founder and CEO.
Awesome. So how have you guys been doing? How was this week?
This last week is a little crazy. We're dealing with kids going back to school in a very Zoom-like world, and as the ladies of Passionflix know, it's been a challenge for me. Like, I'm good at scheduling things. I think, yeah. So anyway,
It's definitely
a 7-year-old at home, and trying to teach them while running a company is a little tricky. And I'm pretty sure I am not the only one out there that's dealing with this. I mean, I know that. I mean, just talking to the other parents out there, everyone is stressed, like really stressed over this. And so I just have to sort of remind myself to not be stressed over that.
Fair. Very fair. Kind of like taking each day in stride. It's a crazy adjustment to have to go through. And
yeah, exactly. So anyway, how about you? How was your week?
Pretty good. I went on a quick camping trip with my roommates, which was very fun. We chose the worst week because it was 100 degrees each day, and my car battery died. But aside from that, it was super fun to get out of the city. And it was good to just veg with them. We had a campfire and we like hiked to this lagoon waterfall thing. It was very fun.
I don't know how you did that in the heat.
No.
Oh, there was one point where we thought the waterfall was up and we got halfway up and I was like, guys, I can't do it. And they're like, all right, we'll turn around. And then we found the waterfall up a much simpler trail. And I was like, but it was very fun.
It was 106 at one point in the valley.
Oh, I know. And it said 107 and 104 the next day at like the peak heat levels. And then at night it got maybe to 79 and then like right to 85 by 8 a.m. the next morning. It was
brutal.
But overall, nice to get away, which was cool. And then we've also just announced Georgia Cates' option of the Beauty from Pain series.
Very exciting.
Everyone's very excited about that, and they're all given some good feedback, which is very nice. And
I'm looking forward to filming in both Australia and Nashville.
Yeah, that will be very, very cool. I'm glad we got her. It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah. I was excited about that. That was a personal favorite of mine that I read a long time ago, and I've always loved Georgia. So I'm really excited, and I'm excited to see everyone else is just as excited as we are.
Yeah, it's awesome. And yeah, Allie, you were the one who told me to read her. So I mean, yeah. You pointed us.
And I love how enthusiastic and excited Georgia Cates is as well. It's just really, it's just an amazing synergy when Passionflix and the authors come together and everyone's just equally excited. We're very fortunate that happens with almost every author. And so, I don't know, just every single time though, it feels new and it feels exciting. And I'm super thrilled to now know Georgia Cates.
Yeah, whenever we announce a new title too, or a new series we're going to be doing, we get questions. And one of the big questions that comes up is Sylvia Day's Crossfire series. So I've tried to address it on a couple of comments, but we love the Crossfire series, but it has been optioned by another studio. So I know a lot of you have been asking for it. We are just as excited to see it on screen, but it has been optioned by another studio, not Passionflix. So I just want to let you all know, because I know so many of you have been begging for it from us, and I want to at least get that out there.
Totally fair. Yeah. Awesome.
But thank you for all the other suggestions too, because there's so many new books coming in on those comments that I've never heard of.
So many good books coming in, and then lots of good books coming in through email as well. I know you're seeing the comments and then I see the email. So we're getting it from all over the place. I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And how's your week been aside from the school stuff?
Me? Really good. Last week I was color timing Gabriel's Inferno Part 3.
So, and for people who don't really know or forgot what color timing is, do you mind broadening that?
Not at all. So when we film things, different environments create a different color temperature. And so in order to match them and create an overall look of the movie, we have to go in and for a week, we adjust each frame, each shot. We adjust the color on each shot to really brighten up the skin or enhance the we were doing Italy. So it's hard to enhance something that's so beautiful, but,
Yeah.
really create the sparkle or enhance the look of Florence and make sure that we see everything clearly and beautifully. And so we do that. And then we do some visual effects, which still aren't done yet, but, I got to see some of the visual effects that are going to be in this movie. And I'm not going to tell you what they are until after you've seen the movie. And then I'm going to tell you what we did. But it's really cool to see. So so super excited. And now we're not quite finished with color. We have another day of color to finish, and then we have to finish our visual effects, and then we have to finish the visual effects first, then we can finish color. So that will be a couple of weeks from now, and then we are still working on our music. But it's almost done.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I love that. I think people are going to be very excited.
And I think we're planning on announcing the release date very soon.
Ooh.
Yes. Yeah. We should have that planned.
Awesome. And so jumping into who we're talking to this week, it was lovely that we had Tracy Hayes on last week to talk about production design. It was really cool to hear more about that. And I know a lot of our fans have been dying to hear more of the behind the scenes stuff. And so I don't know why we didn't do this sooner, but I'm very excited that we're going to be having a lovely chat with our wonderful Passionflix head of creative post-production and editor extraordinaire, Margie Goodspeed. She will be joining us today. A little bit of an intro for people before I let her in is that she's worked on countless projects throughout her career, on top of, I think, almost every Passionflix project she has a hand in. And then she's also worked on movies like The Spitfire Grill, which went to Sundance, the Lizzie McGuire movie, which is a personal favorite of mine from childhood, Holiday Engagement, which is actually where she met you on, T, I believe.
Yeah, that was nice.
Super exciting. And she's also taught at the USC School of Cinematic Arts, which is super awesome. So I'm going to let her in now. Let me let her in. Whoa. Hi, Margie.
Margie.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
So good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm well.
Awesome.
I'm here.
I love that we're finally getting to talk to you. More in-depth meaning. So
you're letting me into the club.
The PassionPod Club. I think a lot of you who have watched PassionPods before would have seen Margie walking behind me.
Yes, all is background action.
Right.
When we're recording in the office, because we work so closely together, and her office is right next to mine.
Yeah, love it. It's awesome. And Margie, so a lot of our fans are dying to know more just about you as a person, as well as
dying to know? That might be a slight exaggeration, but okay, I'll take it.
We're very excited to know.
Okay, we get a lot of questions about you, Margie.
We get a lot of questions about you. So, and I thought we could start off at the very beginning and talk about how long you've been working as an editor, but also how you got your start working in this field, because it's not a field that everybody finds a way into the film industry in their own way. So I wanted to hear if you could talk about yours.
Sure. I discovered editing and fell in love with editing when I was in college and my undergrad. I went to Occidental College, and there wasn't a proper film school there. So I was an English major. Again, it's all about the stories. And I finally was able to get into some film classes, and there's much more proper film department in Occidental now, but at the time, the film department mostly, it was a couple of English professors who did some crossover film and literature courses. And then there was this fabulous professor, Chick Strand, who was an avant-garde filmmaker, experimental filmmaker, and her roots were anthropology. So she made these films that were deeply rooted in human beings and the kind of poetry, and very often abstract. And her films, they came together in editing. She just always made no bones about it. She had an impulse or an idea or something that moved to her, or a person that she thought was interesting, and she would sort of follow that thread and start unraveling it and go there. Or like one of her films was based on a letter that actually it was a journal entry that one of her students had made. And so then she made this whole film about it. And it wasn't literally about what that student, but it was, she had different images going on. But anyway, she made no bones about that. It came together in the editing, and sort of opened my mind, because at that time you couldn't see. Back in the old days, we didn't have the internet yet, and you couldn't access things, you know. And if it didn't play on TV or in the movie theater, you couldn't see it. There wasn't a way, or in your college. So she was showing, you know, experimental films. You know, I saw Fellini for the first time, and I saw these sort of more, you know, Alain Resnais films, these more abstract European films. And so it sort of kind of blew my mind a little bit. Anyways, and then, so I specifically fell in love with editing with her, and she gave us different projects, and we're fooling around with sound and just exploring image and sound. So there you go. That was it.
That's awesome. And then what was your first job when you started pursuing editing?
Well, I had one connection in the entertainment business, and it paid off.
It's always a foot in the door.
Here you are.
And here I am. Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, this is kind of a whole other story. But when I was 17, I wrote a letter. Yeah. Oh, y'all, I'm going to. I wrote a letter to Betty Buckley. And anyway, long story short, she invited me to come join a meditation class she was doing, because she was living at the Chateau Marmont at that time. Wow. So I was going.
I didn't know this.
So LA, right?
That's awesome.
But what happened is, then when I was a senior in college, she'd moved back to New York in the interim, and she came to LA, and we got together, and she asked me what I wanted to do. This is January, and I'm going to be graduating in June, right? And she said, what do you want to do when you graduate? And I said, I want to be in the entertainment business. And she said, well, what do you want to do in movies? And I said, well, I'm interested in editing. And so she had a brother who was an assistant editor. Wow. And long story short, I met him, and then a job came up literally a month after I graduated, in the editing room of William Anderson, who cut Tender Mercies, which is just such a beautiful film. So he was the first editor I ever worked with, and the assistant on that, Wendy Pfeiffer, it was so great, and she just trained me so well. I got the Class A training right from the beginning. So, and I still remember stuff that Bill said to me. I mean, one of the things he said was, because let me say, what's really cool about being in the editing room, even when you're an apprentice, you're in the position to actually see the footage, and the editor will often ask you to come in and watch the absolute first cut that nobody's ever seen of these scenes. Wow. And ask for your feedback and your reaction. And that's just like, to see how something evolves, goes from the script and the dailies to that first assembly, to then those changes and how it becomes a movie. I had such a great experience, and I worked with so many wonderful editors that I just really, I feel like that's one of my strengths, you know, like how to yep. put it together. So, but anyway, one of the things he said is, you know, just watch the film, and it'll tell you where to cut.
Wow, so. I love that.
Margie, for people that don't know, can you tell them what it is to be an editor and what your role entails?
Okay, well, maybe Tosca should say that now.
Well, generally speaking, when I'm on set and I'm filming something and I go, yeah, that's gonna work, Margie's gonna fix it. All right, great, and we'll just move on.
Well, what it takes, I do love puzzling. One of the things I love, I'm going to answer your question directly, Ali, but one of the things I do love about what I do is that it is a combination of craft and art, you know, because there are little tools you have and little tricks you have to sort of get past a bumpy moment, perhaps. Yeah, anyway, so I love that editing is like music, because it's very mathematical in one aspect, and it's also, you know, full of art. So I love that. But what do I do? Well, I guess in the beginning, I really read the script. It used to be when I had to interview for jobs. Thank God I don't do that anymore. I would read the script, and that would
please take the job.
I got no job. I would read the script, and then the meeting with the director would be about the script. You know, so you know, if there's a problem in the script, then there's going to be a problem in the editing room. So you try to nip it in the bud, or at least bring it up. And often there's a very good answer of why something's some way. And with Tosca, I never have to worry, because she's like, oh yeah, don't worry, I'm going to blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. But so I'm reading the script, and then as the movie's being shot, a lot of people don't realize this, but as each scene is being shot, I'm receiving those, we call them dailies, of every bit of footage that Tosca has shot, and every angle. And so there's multiple angles, as you know, if you put it all together. And then it's my job to watch all of that and pick the best bits. That's a comment from Bob Layton, another editor I worked with. Just pick the best bits and put them in there, and that's it. So it becomes, first it's an assembly of scenes that are shot out of order. And then, so every time I'm cutting a scene, I am trying to hold the whole movie in my head, and know what this scene is doing for the whole movie. Like every scene has a bit of work to do, call it work, but hopefully it's fun and art, to do for the whole movie. Do you know? And so, and it's like, at what point are you revealing certain aspects of the character relationship, and what point are you kind of trying to let it be mysterious? So there's a little bit of there's obviously wiggle room, and those are the parts where it really gets finessed. And that's the fun part with Tosca, is to really make those beats play as best as they can.
You know,
so
how,
go ahead.
Sorry, how I love how you describe it is that the movie, basically you're responsible for the energy of the movie, right? So it's moving around, and you have all these balls in the air. And she always, this is how Margie, she's like, I've got the ball in there, I'm going to throw that ball up, and then I'm going to catch it, and then I'm going to throw this ball up, and I'm going to catch it. And it's basically just juggling these balls to keep the energy and keep the feeling alive throughout the entire movie, so that it doesn't, sink and we sort of lose momentum. So it is this, she creates these waves of energy and emotion throughout the entire, long movie, which is difficult if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. That's because it's all, I think that basically when people turn on a movie, they want to enjoy themselves. Yeah. So my feeling is you have to lose them. Do you know what I mean? Like, nobody wants to be lost. They don't want you to waste their time. And that's why I feel like, don't waste your time. No. Like, and it is an energy, and there's a kind of alchemy that happens. And so you just have to, and sometimes you're like teeing people. I actually, this is another thing that's related to this. I really don't like the kind of editing and movie making in general, where you're sort of led down a very narrow path. Like, this is really the only way you can experience it. Like, sometimes when characters are one dimensional, it's like, okay, there's no way around that person's just a bitch, or whatever it is, Right. And so I always like the kind of movies that invite me in, and that give me a little space to bring myself. Because if you're telling me everything, then I'm not engaged. But if I'm like, oh, that's interesting, or that I wasn't necessarily expecting that, or I didn't quite get to see what I thought I wanted to see, but then you give it to them a little later, So it's like that. It's a dance, and that's the fun part. So that's what I do. And then of course I am putting music on the movie. That's a lot of the music I put originally doesn't end up in the movie, because it's just temp score, just to give an idea how things play. Right. And that's very illuminating. And then that becomes a guide for the composer. And then fortunately, more and more, we're getting to actually use some of the songs that I put in the movie. We're able to, people are more interested in working with us more and more as we go. So that's been fun.
Yeah. Which is pretty interesting, even like as not coming from the film industry, and seeing the different cuts you put together when we've had different music on it, how much it changes it with different music.
So much.
And how much you have to put into finding the right song.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you're like, I'll go in and I'll watch a movie with Margie, or watch one of the cuts with Margie, and there'll be a scene that, this doesn't happen very often, but maybe there'll be like a section that's not really working so well, and Margie's like, I have to put music on this. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, music coming. And then when you watch the same scene again, but music's playing, it's a completely different feel. And I mean, just for me, I've had the opportunity to work with Margie now for almost 10 years, right? Something like that, 9 years. And each time I work with Margie, I'm learning more and more about the filmmaking process. So, one of the things that, we're talking about how she cuts things, or and the work of an editor. So sometimes when you'll watch a movie and I'll watch a scene and I'll go, it's not working. Something about the scene's not working, and it's just not fitting well. And she's like, okay, hang on a second, let's go to the scene before this and let's fix this one. And let's go to the scene after this and let's fix this one. And now let's watch it. And so sometimes it's not the scene itself so much as what's happened before, the teeing off and the payoff.
Yeah. That
needs a little bit more work. And so it's very interesting for us to get in there. So Margie and I work together so much, just trying to like, well, what is this? And I think now we have a bit of a shorthand after 10 years of working together. And I'm like, probably we just need to trim that a few frames, and we just need to move this here. And Lauren's experienced that with us as well. We'd be cutting something, and like when she cut Wrapped Up in You, and Margie's looking at it and she's like, okay, very good. And then I'm like, you just need to cut a few frames here, cut a few frames here. And Lauren's like, my goodness, when you cut a few frames, it's amazing.
It's amazing. And I know how to use editing software, but I'm nowhere near like novice or intermediate. Like having to sit down with you on Wrapped Up in You, Tosca, was so nerve-wracking, especially because I think I had just started working with you, or we had just gotten back from London. It was that beginning of 2018 or end of 2018 kind of thing. And you and Margie do have such a shorthand that she can click, 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 done. It's done in 2 seconds. And I'm like, okay, 4 frames. I don't know how to do the shortcuts. So anyway, every time Margie shows us something, my mind is blown, or, it's just like, it's so impressive. And it is fun. Margie, you mentioned that a fun part of being an apprentice editor was that you got to go in and watch things before anybody else did. And more often than not, you show Tosca everything first, but like the occasional trailer or promo, you'll just be like, Lauren, can you come look at this thing? And I'm like, okay. And I go in, and so you get to see my reaction, but it's fun to like, that's a very cool part of it. And I like that you get to include us in it.
Well, it's so valuable. I can't even say how valuable it's not. And that is one of the things that I really did learn from that process is, when you invite somebody in to be a critic of any work in progress, sometimes people aren't kind of jerks, they want to be critical, and so they want to be smart or whatever.
Right.
And I saw that happen in editing rooms with, other people I worked with, and I saw how certain people didn't get asked in the room as much because they weren't as helpful, know, and it's so important to be a good audience. Like that's so invaluable to me. And that's, all of you guys, I mean, Tosca's in a whole other category, of course, but it's so valuable.
And they're panicking on the side with you, Margie.
I know, you straddle both sides. You're like, whoa, I'm this, because you made it. You made it. But it's so valuable and also you want to make sure what you're doing is connecting. Mm-hmm. And I've told this story before, but it was a real, to Tosca, maybe not publicly here, but so it was a real breakthrough for me when Lauren was very early on. I barely met you. I certainly didn't really know you in any way, but that evening of the launch of Passionflix, when we were all together, and I drove the cut of a work in progress cut of Afterburn, Aftershock, over, and we all sat in that room and we watched it. I don't know, 6 or 8 of us. And Lauren, I'm sorry, but
Lauren's the best audience.
She's the best audience. But Lawrence was like talking back to the screen. It was like a melodrama, that class boo, hiss, it's like so reactive. And and it was so appropriate because we're drinking wine, although I don't know if I was, because I'm totally working. I'm like on my phone writing all the notes Scott's giving me. She's whispering in my ear. But I just to see that reaction and to understand how the work was connecting with an audience, because I hadn't had that experience on Hollywood Dirt. We never really had a proper screening that I was in. And so it's just so valuable. It's really important. And that's the other thing that Tosca is super good at, and that I love working with you, Tosca, about, is because you're able to, even though you made it, you're able to be a very good audience. And that's not always easy to do. But also it's like, as the movie's evolving, sometimes there's like something in the back of my head that's like, that's not quite right, but I'm not sure what to do about it yet. You know, and it almost, it's like almost subliminal that it's not quite right. But then invariably Tosca will like, what's that? And I was like, oh, damn, yeah, we got to get in there and fix it. And she always has, you know, if I'm not sure what to do, she's like, she always has the right idea. And it's very few times when we really wrestled with scenes.
Yeah.
My experience working on movies, generally there's more scenes that are really hard to get to. There's only been a couple in all the movies we've done where we were like, this one's a bit of a beast.
Yeah. Well, I would say that, like 90, maybe 85 to 90% of it feels like it can just come together kind of nicely. And then you have like 15% of like, I have no idea how we're going to pull this off, but we're going to do something. And then, you know, something like that works. Or did we lose?
Yeah.
No, wait.
Okay, I'm here.
There you got it. And so, yeah, speaking of Hollywood Dirt, that was the first project for Passionflix that you guys worked on together. Mm-hmm. And I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about that, because were you on location in Georgia with them, or were you brought on more at the end of it? Got it.
No, they were just sending me footage.
Got it.
And I was cutting away, and then and that one, I think that one might have taken the longest for us to put together. We had a little more time on that. I'm not sure. It came together pretty quickly, but
it did. You know, actually so we shot it in March, April, and then came back. But instead of you actually cutting the movie, I said, hey, we're going to RT in May. I need you to cut a trailer for Hollywood Dirt before the movie is cut. And she's like, I just got the footage. I don't know what the movie's going to be yet. And I was like, just cut us a trailer and some teasers and all these things. And so she was, so Margie was watching the whole movie, had this, I think you had.
I didn't have all the footage. You hadn't shot all the movie yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't even have the whole movie.
But she had all these things like Post-it notes on the wall when I came down to her, because she was editing out of her house. And then I came to her house and there's Post-it notes on like what the trailer's going to be. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is great. So do you have a trailer? We have to have a trailer so that we can launch Passionflix. And so she did, and she cut that great trailer for Hollywood Dirt, and then we were able to take to RT, and that's when we officially announced Passionflix, and that was like
awesome
mid-May, so May 7th, I think. So
yeah, I think my dates on my promos in May. Yeah.
I think you had like she had 3 weeks or something in order to cut together this trailer, which is so hard when you don't have the movie done, you know. You don't have music.
Oh, but we had Summer and we had Cole.
We had Summer and Cole, you bet. And then right after that, I came back from RT, and we're editing, but at the same time as editing that movie. So now again, Passionflix launched September 1.
Right.
So at the same time as editing that, I'm also trying to raise money for Passionflix, and I'm trying to get all the, trying to get founding members to sign up, at the same time raising money, closing deals with investors, doing all these things. And then we're scheduled to shoot Afterburn Aftershock in July.
Right.
And we had a different director attached to that one. And then that director, that didn't work out. And so 3 weeks before shooting Afterburn Aftershock, I came on to direct that movie. And I was like, all right, here I come. I'm going to edit this on the weekends with Margie. So it was basically, this is where it would help to have a bit of a shorthand. Margie and I had I directed one other movie prior to that with Margie editing. But it was basically, Margie was coming to my house for cuts, and we were like having our hair done, while trying to watch a cut, trying to do all these things
was first
time. That was not a good idea. Don't do that.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea. Hair dryers going while we're trying to watch it, because like there are so many things we had to do at the same time. Yeah. But I remember, like, I would just sit, I would watch the cut, and then I would sit and I would write copious notes, and I would email them to Margie, and then I would go back to set and I would direct Afterburn. And then while we were doing Afterburn, we had to do the sound mix for Hollywood Dirt.
Right.
Wow. We had to do it on a weekend. I remember, because I had to take my kids to the stage. So Margie,
that was because we had a little bit of a kerfluffle, so we had to move the mix.
We had to move the mix. But yeah. So Margie is also, so this is something that people might not know. So you just got a whole bunch of background on Passionflix in that first year, Hollywood Dirt. But the movie is still, I think, I think it's our baby, so I think like it's our first child, so so maybe one of my favorites. But and also so much work to get that done. But what was I saying? Hollywood Dirt. Then we came back. Oh gosh, no! Now I've lost it.
We're in the sound mix with your kids.
Oh, sound mix, yes. So something that people don't know is that the editor is actually with me during the sound mix. So because while Margie's also editing everything and she's adding the music, she's also adding sound effects. So sometimes you don't know that there's wind blowing in the background or birds chirping.
The one that I think is sort of stood out in a way is Matchmaker. Like when I started putting those sound effects on his looks and all that cheesy sound effects in there, that just made that come to life, right?
Awesome.
So that was fun.
So Margie instructs all of the sound effects. So when the effects editor and the dialogue editor, and then she's like making notes of like, okay, we want to do ADR, which means we have to re-record the lines of some of the actors on this section, and we need to, we've decided that we want to add something on this section that's affected by sound. So Margie will then inform all people that have anything to do with sound: composer, sound editor, dialogue editor, and effects editor, and then is with me on the soundstage the entire time. So, and normally now we're at the point where Margie's in the stage for the first 2 days, and then I actually only have to come in for the last 2 days because Margie knows me so well. And
I pretty much we got it down.
Okay,
also, you've just been too busy.
Yeah,
You've been so busy.
Yeah, I only have 2 days, the weekend. The weekends to do it, but
yeah. And I thought also, Margie, you could talk a little bit about what it's like now editing book adaptations more than maybe just straight script films like you started.
That brings us back to Hollywood Dirt a little bit, which is, how can I say this? So most of the stories that we see in Hollywood are sort of, and I have this thing that I think that the screenplay, the whole way that screenplays work in terms of conflict and resolution, and there always has to be this, they're very male in a way. That in Hollywood Dirt, I was trying to shape the movie the way that I kind of would, in terms of feeling like, God, this seems like it's too long here, or this is that, or I don't know, do we really need that scene? And I had taken some stuff out and shown a cut to Tosca, and Tosca's like, we have to have that scene, and it's in the book. And so there was a whole shift for me, which was kind of a wonderful evolution to, okay, this is a book. People, the fans love these books. So we are as Tosca has said over and over again, we want to bring the books as true, the movies as true to the books as we possibly can. Okay. And so that's been really liberating in a whole different sort of way, because it's like, and I think that on Driven, I think I there was kind of a breakthrough in a certain way for me, because I felt like, I don't know, there's that beautiful quote from Keats that I think I quoted to Tosca before she watched the first cut. Or maybe some version of it, which is, he talks, his application is poetry, of course. It's like, you don't read a poem to try to work it out. He's like, you shouldn't read a poem to work it out. Like you when you dive into a lake, you're not trying to work the lake out. You want to luxuriate in the sensation of water. Right. And so that's how I felt with Driven. It's like, because the script was only, how many pages?
93 or something, 95.
And generally it's, we talk generally a minute per page, and our scripts don't do that, because let's just say it can be 3 lines and Tosca can like shoot a 8-minute scene on it, but it's okay.
Love it.
So in the first cut of the movie was 2 hours and 40 minutes. So it should have been an hour and whatever, 30 minutes, 33 minutes. So that was just a movie that just wanted to expand and truly luxuriating in this world of these lovers and their story evolving. And so, and that was the joy of really trying to, you can't put every scene that's in book, obviously, but to try to really honor and respect the fact that people pick up these books to read them because they want to get lost in this world. So to try to give the audience that experience of feeling held in that world and to be able to get lost in it in their own way. I think that movie was sort of a breakthrough in that for us to some degree, but not that the other ones don't do that. But that one just did it in a little bit of a different way, I think. So
yeah, and now we use that all the time. We'll just say, you know, if we are depending on the movie, of course, but oftentimes I'll just say to Margie, I want to luxuriate in the world.
Yeah.
Let's just keep going. We can take our time. I say this to the actors as well. I tell them to take their time doing everything. I can always take time away. I can't add time. So just just really be in that moment. And for the editors, for the actors, for everybody, just take your time doing it. And then if we need to cut away, we'll cut away. Yeah,
because it's like in a book, you create that world with words, you know, words on the page, and in a movie, it can't always be words. You know, it has to be the spaces between the words. It has to be the images and the sounds and the room for the music and all that other way. Those are the tools of cinema. So we use those tools as opposed to words on a page. So
yeah,
I love that.
But whenever I get a little held up or lost, or not lost, but anything catching me up, I'll just always go back to the book and just read that scene in the book or whatever it is. And it's always, it's just every time it feels like if something's not happening, it's like, go back to the book. And that's always the source. So.
And that should be our motto. That should be our motto at Passionflix. Go back to the book. Luxuriate in the world, go back to the book.
And I can definitely,
when we decided to break it up into a series, because originally it was, you know, we were thinking it would be a movie. And then, you know, so it wasn't designed to be broken up into sections, and we figured out spots. But then, okay, well, what is it? That's where, you know, the idea of saying, okay, this is chapter 1 through like that, and then picking a line, which is a little bit of a nod to another movie that I'm not going to mention, but anyway, picking a line that you were going to hear or see in that next sequence,
right.
Or even the repeating a line that started, like the first line of the book is the first line, I think, of the first one. Just always that, going back to the book, because that's what our audience loves. They love the book, and so do we. So.
And you definitely do it, Margie, because there'll be moments where she's like, okay, I'm reading this section, but Lauren, do you mind searching the book to see how many times they mentioned this 9 Inch Nails song or something like that? You know, or like how
I need some help searching.
Can you give me a list of the specific songs? I'm like, I got you. And then I go on Kindle and I search it. Yeah. So we definitely pull from the book.
I know that we've also reached out to authors and founding members and fans, just basically, hey, what's the playlist on this? Where's that's I mean, it's a great thing about having
Christy Bromberg for Driven had a couple of playlists that she either made on Spotify or something and then shared with us, I think, right? Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. And then another question I had was, well, you went to London with us, obviously, and then again, you were in Syracuse for Gabriel's Inferno. Do you think it's better or easier for the editor to be kind of on site near where the project is being filmed, or is that just something special that's been happening with Passionflix?
Well, honestly, it's probably easier for me not to go personally. I mean, you know, because I'm in my own home, I got my own editing room.
Right.
But in terms of better for the movie, I think in general, if it's at all reasonable within the budget and the space, it's better if I'm there. It's better, I think, if I can be communicating with Tosca and she can come and see a scene. It's just a sort of, it's also the spirit of it, I think, is valuable for us as a team. And also being in London, I mean, I don't know if you mind me saying, Tosca, but I took my phone out on the weekends and I shot quite a few shots that are actually in the movie. Yeah. So just because I shot the exterior of the store where she goes and buys the lingerie because I'm like, I needed it.
Yeah. And when we went to film that scene, it was raining, so we couldn't get an exterior that day.
Yeah, you couldn't get an exterior, so I just went over there one day. I shot it. Yeah. So there you go.
I don't mind you saying that at all. I also so this is the kind of thing that when you are a small team, and so Margie shot a lot of those like London shots. So she would stand in a median in the middle of the road and like hold up her camera, and she'd there. And then I remember I shot that one shot of them driving along to the countryside.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful shot with your, yeah.
Yeah, we're like just
On the
like
field.
it was
I mean, these
handheld.
phones, they shoot 4K, and the color spaces are very sophisticated. So, and Tosca's shot was, you know, the best choice of that beautiful.
Right.
Like, that's so much better. Sorry, sorry to say that.
Yeah. So it is. And then with regards to Margie and coming with 2 locations, I think everybody at Passionflix knows how much I just love to travel with the entire Passionflix team.
Right.
So every time I go on location, because, you know, we're so small and we are a team that wants to do everything to bring this book to life, and we work together as a team that way. And so, you know, while we're still small and this close, it's so incredible for me to have the support of you guys with me on set. So to me, it's the Syracuse one is the first time that Lauren didn't come out, and Lauren's been with me on every single movie prior to that. So it was like this bizarre, like, where's Lauren? Lauren would know what to do here situation, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, when we go to, but also, you know, Margie and I have now formed a very strong friendship. So when I go to all these locations and we're all alone, not only do we get to spend time together working and coming up with situations, and you know, I can go like, this is a problem, how am I going to fix this? Can I look at the scene, or am I missing something here? I'm going to add something here, don't cut it here, do this sort of thing. That's one way of doing it. That's our business relationship. But then on Friday nights, I get to have a glass of wine with Margie and my friends and chat about that. And then maybe when we were in London, Lauren, we'll go to the theater on Saturday night with Dennis as well. So it's great. And so this last time I got to, Margie was there, but in Syracuse, and then Ali came out. And so Ali and I would, you know, do things like order delicious Mexican food and drink wine on our days off.
You know, I'm gonna say on my end, it's helpful too, because my role is very different, but you find the moments throughout the day where I can grab Tosca for 5 minutes, and it was helpful because Margie was there, so I could go in and talk to Margie about, you know, some sort of tease or any type of stills we had to pull. So it's about finding those moments we can actually connect together and get stuff done.
And it's all, there's a kind of appreciation. You know, what we do is a part of the culture. You know, we're contributing things that are part of the culture, and we're also consumers of the culture, because we see things we enjoy, we get inspired by things, we listen to things, we talk about what we've seen, and we sort of immerse ourselves in these worlds, and often it'll spark an idea that ends up in the movie. You know, something will just come. It's just, you know, whatever, we're having a glass of wine and we're not technically talking about work, but then something comes up, and or like one morning on Gabriel's Inferno, Dennis was my roommate, and and he was, you know, every morning he would have his coffee and he would go over what the day's shoot was. And I'm kind of clueless. Like, I don't know what they're shooting on any particular day. I just get the footage. But he was talking to me one day about that they were shooting the scene in the restaurant when Gabriel first, you know, she tastes the wine for the first time, and he sort of appreciates her and takes note. And I'm not sure how the idea came up, but it was like, oh, that would be cool if that was slow motion maybe, or something. And, you know, so it's like just talking about how to make the moments land. That, you know, whatever it is. And then, you know, and Tosca and I've watched a lot of things together, and she'll be like, oh, I want to do that, and I want to take that kind of idea of the staging and use that for the projector or whatever it was. And so that's all super fun.
Yeah, actually, another great example of that is the title sequence to Driven. So Margie and I were watching a lot of shows together, and just like, so we would edit and then like, okay, we're just going to take a break in the evening, whatever, and we'd watch a show. And there was one show that we really got into, and so I was like, okay, that'd be pretty cool if we could do a title sequence similar to that, but in the same vein. And so that inspires Margie then to create, to come up with that really interesting title sequence that we had for Driven.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
absolutely. It was great. I mean, when I, you know, that, because you
hang out with you guys more often, come up with more ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and this you might have already like semi-picked through talking about it, but, and this is a little bit putting you on the spot, but Margie, is there like a favorite Passionflix project that you've worked on of all of these? You as head of
darlings do I love best?
you get a hand in everything as head of creative post-production. You, even the movies that aren't edited or directed by Tosca and aren't edited by you look at and give notes on and stuff. So
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
But of the ones
when Tosca asked me very early on when we were editing the first movie that she directed that I cut, a Christmas, what was it called? The title changed. It was called A Christmas Story.
And it turned into Cinderella Christmas.
Yeah, Cinderella Christmas. That's why I got confused. Cinderella Christmas. But she said, I'm starting this company and I want you to come on and I want you to edit, make sure everything we do is well edited. So I do my best to follow through on that. So I do watch other things.
No, totally.
But I don't, to say I have a favorite is, I can't, like I said, Driven felt like a different sort of opening in a way.
Right.
That was, I think, also another reason why I'm just going to say Driven, although because it was a first in some regard for a couple things. The other was that 8-minute dialogue scene on the beach, which was, it's just been, it was kind of a breakthrough and emblematic for me, talking about what's the difference between doing these adaptations to a regular movie. Like in most movies, you don't see a scene that long where two people are in one space just having a conversation. You just don't see it. And I think it's maybe more female, not to be, gender biased, but like, and when I'm cutting that scene, I was just like, oh my God, when am I going to get through this thing? Because I'm trying to hold all these performances in my head and all these moments, I mean, I take notes, but it's like when it's 8 minutes, it's like so long. So that's actually really challenging on my little brain. And sometimes I have to take it in sections, but I have to think of the whole thing because it's like, okay, it has to progress in some way. So it was like choice of shot and size. And then, it's like if they're really best in their close up, but it's really early on in the scene, how do I use it if I can? And, but that breakthrough of really realizing a scene can play and be incredible and totally engaging for that long. And then of course in Dirty Sexy Saint, we had a couple of 11-minute scene. And then and then there was another really long scene that's almost a monologue, that Clay has when he's in bed and he's revealing his story. That's quite a long scene too. But so now it's, and now we have the chocolate cake scene. So our scenes in Gabriel's Inferno. So again, I don't have a favorite, but each one sort of has been other layers of opening and exploring how we can bring these books to life. It's been super fun. So
yeah, and I also, for me, just on how I'm filming them is very interesting. I love two people just sitting and talking. I find it so fascinating, and especially when they're talented. Like for example, seeing Julio and Melanie talk. I mean, the two of them are so connected that when the two of them have a conversation, it's amazing. I can just sit there. I'm like, oh, right, the scene's over now. Right, let's take two. So it's really quite wonderful. The same thing happened when David Gregory did his 11-minute talk lying down on the bed. I was like, that's just, I don't know how I would cut away from any of that. It's just too good.
I know. We tried to cut it down a little bit at one point, and I think maybe we cut one line out that you still regret, one word or one phrase.
Probably. Yeah.
But I guess that reminds something to me that I think is sort of lovely about what we're doing also is listening. The listening is so important. It's so sexy to be heard. And I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, and like the whole phone sex scene in Hollywood Dirt.
So good.
Okay. Tosca and I have a preferred cut, but that's not the one that's maybe we should release that as a special feature someday. I can find it. But it was, to me, what was sexy was the listening. It's like somebody's in your ear, you know, somebody's telling you, so it was mostly all listening as opposed to seeing the person who was talking, which is kind of fun.
That's awesome.
I love it. Margie, we have a couple founding member questions, so we want to throw over to you. Charlie asked, do you have a tradition or something you do to celebrate once you complete a project?
The next movie. She doesn't get to
Tosca's laughing. Define finish.
Wait, can you say that again? Oh.
I said define finish.
Oh, define
a
finish.
movie. Because once the movie's like done, then there's still work to do. But to answer your question, I do try to at least take a moment, even if it's just having a drink, or we have a cheers, or we. So there's no tradition other than trying to just hold that space of really appreciating that something's been accomplished and being grateful for that. So yeah.
And we do actually have to. That's a great question, because I know a lot of people know that we make movies so fast here. It might not seem fast to other people, but it's super, super fast. And so generally speaking, as soon as Margie's locked picture on one, she's already starting on another. And so we almost lose that, at times we've come close to losing that feeling of accomplishment. Oh, we've done that. Wow, we've completely finished that movie. It's so beautiful. I'm so proud of it. And we can find ourselves just quickly jumping into the next one. Just keep working. Yeah. And I think a few times we've had to catch ourselves and go, oh, hey, we finished a movie. That's pretty good. Yeah. That's a lot of work. It's very hard. And so cheers.
I remember
we'll go and work on it.
Specifically
because we were
driven. Oh, sorry.
Oh, when we were doing, there was this time we did, Tosca flew on the weekend to watch the final mix of Dirty Sexy Saint. Okay, so pretty much the movie's done. When that's done, it's just a little bit of a technical process once the sound is mixed. And then going back, shooting Gabriel's Rapture, we were watching edits of The Will to get it cut. And we were, there was
that was Inferno.
There was so much. Yeah, we were, did I say, you were shooting Gabriel's Inferno. Yeah. And
because we did watching thing for Rapture.
Oh, right. I'm sorry, but it was Gabriel's Inferno I meant. I'm already ahead to Rapture. Here's my continuity for that. But they're so overlapping that I would, I remember, I think specifically I said to Tosca at one point, there's so much going on. It feels like we're failing, but we're actually doing an incredible amount of work and accomplishing so much, So.
And I do remember once right after Driven, we went out to a restaurant near us and we cheersed, I think with Moscow Mules or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we try to take moments every now and then, but more often than not, we're going full speed ahead to the next one.
Well, like when we finished mixing Gabriel's Inferno 2, Tosca and I were, we're like, we finished about 3 p.m. The mixer still had some work, but we were done. And we're like, and it's COVID, so like, right. Woohoo! And then we were like, basically, you want to come over to my house and have a drink, or you want to go to your house and have a drink? Right. So we sat out in my backyard and had a drink and decided to go to Montana.
All right. Awesome.
And then Montana while we were waiting for after locking picture of 3.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Funny. And Ariana asked, how do you map out your continuity? Photographic memory, handwritten notes?
You just wanted
to paper that she just showed you.
I know. Yeah. Well, I do. Like I said, it's being shot. I kind of answered a little tiny bit, but it's been shot in scenes that are all over the place. And so I have my assistant make up this one-liner of one line for every scene, and then I just check them off as I'm cutting them. And I don't want to show you too much. But and then in Gabriel's Inferno,
screenshots all over.
Big. I know. Sorry, I was trying to move it around a lot.
No,
It's
you're
okay.
good. We can't see it. We can't see it.
But on Gabriel's Inferno, I did something that I hadn't done before.
It was great. I loved it.
Yeah, because I knew it was so big, it was so long, that I had my assistant take one representative frame from each scene, and then print it out like on a like an index card, and put the scene number and a little description of the scene, and it was on the wall, the whole, like, covered 2 walls, the whole book, so that it was a visual reference, and we could just immediately kind of go to that if we wanted to see the sequence of scenes.
Yeah.
But that's how I do it. Just kind of keep track like that, and then I'll on my little notes I'll write different things, like if there's visual effects or if there's a song we need to get or all that kind of stuff. So keep my notes, keep track of things that way.
I love the index cards on the wall, because I walk into Margie's office in the morning, and I would just, like, you just look around, you're like, okay, there's my whole movie, and all right, great. And then you're able to basically take the whole movie in at once, and in a very brief moment, just visually. And then you're like, okay, now I'm going to focus on this section here. And it was really great. I'd love us to do that.
We can do it every time. Yeah, we can do it all the time. Yeah. It's it's like when you have a little bit more of a bigger crew and support, you could have those things all the time. So we're working on it. We're getting up there.
Slowly but surely.
I love that. And we had one last founding member question come in, and it's Mira asks, what part of your job do you like the least, and what part do you like the most?
The part I like the least is when I have to get down on my hands and knees and plug in and unplug drives. I don't like doing that. That's it, and that's not too bad. So I feel pretty good about that.
That's fair.
What do I like most? Oh gosh, so many things I like most. I mean, honestly, I worked with so many different situations and people, and you have work experience over a period of time, and you're in a position to really know what you value and what you appreciate. And I just love working with Tosca. I got to tell you, that's the favorite part of my job, and that we do things and that we make things that not only that we love, but that people seem to love. So that's so satisfying. And it's just to have somebody whose heart is, and heart and mind are so aligned and so capable. And what can I say? We have similar taste. I mean, our taste's probably different enough so that we like rub up against each other in a positive way sometimes in terms of creative juices. But yeah, I mean, that's everything. It's like who's in the room with you, and it can make your life freaking hell if that person doesn't have the sensibilities. And fortunately I haven't had very few experiences like that, but Tosca has been a dream. So
I love working with you too.
Oh, that's
I love you all.
I love you guys too. That's a gem of a note to end on. And usually Margie will have our guest exit the room, and then we'll say a quick goodbye. But since this is the entire team of Passionflix, I thought we could all just say goodbye here. So thanks everybody for tuning in this week. It was so wonderful to get to talk to Margie, because she's beautiful and awesome, and we wouldn't finish projects without her. And,
not finished till it's finished.
And exactly.
Which one? Sorry, you guys are frozen on my side.
No, just we have this saying, it's not finished till it's finished.
Right, exactly.
Margie and I. It's not finished
I love
till
that.
it's finished.
So cool. Check out this video and tune in next week for more. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, hit them in the YouTube below or reach out to us over email. And thanks again for tuning in.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Love you, ladies.